Alrighty, let's get started.
Hello. Welcome back to another Tabnine Office Hours. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Good, product marketing over here at Tab9. And of course, as always, we have Ameya. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everybody, my name is Ameya Deshmukh, head of marketing programs at Tab9. I wanted to let you guys know that this office hours session is meant to be totally interactive. So whether you're joining us from YouTube, LinkedIn, from the StreamYard itself, or Twitter, go ahead and pop in comments, questions anytime along the way, and we'll pause and answer any questions that come up. And while we're doing the demo, if there's anything in particular that you want to see or want us to slow down or focus on, just pop in the chat as well. Quick question to everyone that's here today. If you want to let us know, are you using any AI coding assistants today? And if so, what are you using? Just go ahead and drop that in the chat and feel free to introduce yourselves as well. Alrighty, while we're waiting for folks to feel comfortable sharing and chatting with us, let's go ahead and roll in through the presentation.
Not everyone at once, right? Okay, so let's kick off. We'll start with the agenda, right? So we're going to be covering a lot today. So here's what you can expect to learn in this session. Right, so we'll go over how to maintain complete privacy over your code and data. We'll then go through how to have complete protection from IP issues and legal liability. We'll talk about improving the performance of your AI code assistant, as well as how to have complete model flexibility. And then we'll talk about accelerating your entire SDLC through AI agents, and then how Tab9 leverages RAG to perform like an engineer on your team. We'll then end with a live demo of an application build, right? Going through Jira issues all the way through code review. And then we'll have a live Q&A. So let's go over some baseline stats to better understand the real impact of AI code assistants or that they're delivering, right? AI code assistants like Tab9 are proven to have a significant impact on developer productivity, engineering velocity, and employee satisfaction. And here's just a few statistics we can share from independent studies. So starting with AI reduces developer task time by up to 30% for code refactoring, 45% for code generation, and 50% for documentation. And task completion by developers went up by as much as 15% for medium complexity tasks and up by 30% for high complexity tasks. Developers reported being happier in their work went up from 45% without AI to 88% with AI, with a similar 2x increase in the ability to focus on more meaningful work. And one independent survey of IT pros estimated that they could save more than 5 hours per week by using AI to complete repetitive tasks. And that equates to roughly $15,000 worth of time per IT worker annually. And based on our measures, that is like a very low estimate of the value actually being delivered. Right. So with all of this, it's no surprise that one survey even reported that 78% of companies expect to use generative AI for software development in the next 3 to 5 years. So the benefits to engineering teams are proving to be abundantly clear. But, let's talk about which, go ahead, Maya, sorry.
So just wanted to add on a couple of thoughts here. So some of the biggest changes you're going to see in your own teams and workflow from adopting Tab9 specifically is that your engineers are going to want to onboard onto projects much faster. You're going to retain more of your team because I know staffing and retaining your engineers is pretty challenging. They tend to want to job hop quite frequently. All your code is going to be far more maintainable because it'll all be supported with clear testing, documentation. And when you're using our code review agent as well, all of the new code that you're generating much more quickly is also going to be reviewed and free from any security risks and in compliance with your unique standards and policies. And to support this, we've created a full set of AI agents across the entire SDLC that help you in every step of the way. But before I get into that too much further, I just want to hand it off to Chris for a moment, just to introduce you guys to Tabnine in case you're new and you haven't heard of us really yet.
Yeah, so what is Tabnine? Tabnine boosts code quality and developer happiness by automating the coding workflow through AI tools. So Tabnine helps development teams of every size use AI to accelerate and simplify the development process without sacrificing privacy and security. Tabnine boosts engineering velocity, code quality, and of course developer happiness by automating these workflows, right? So we've pioneered. There's a couple points I want to draw attention to, right? We've pioneered generative AI for software development. We are actually the originator of the AI code assistant category, launching our first product in 2018. And now Tabnine's used by over 1 million developers across thousands of very highly regulated industries. And Tabnine also works with more than 600 languages and frameworks and supports all of the most popular IDEs, right? So we'll meet you where you're comfortable. We're not going to have you change the ways that you're used to doing things, right?
And you don't have to go and install a brand new custom IDE to use Tabnine either.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're an AI code assistant that supports the entire SDLC, right? So you can use Tabnine to support every single one of your tasks. We'll just breeze through this slide pretty quickly here.
Yeah, so an AI code assistant is this agent that lives alongside you, right? As you move throughout the development process, and it's powered by generative AI infrastructure, and it's very aware of your project and code base. AI code assistants can take your plain language prompts and use that to explain code, document code, refactor or fix code, answer general coding questions, or even help coach you on specific languages and frameworks, as well as autonomously generate documentation and tests, the quote unquote not fun stuff, right? And the capability of these AI assistants continue to grow, right? Taking on more and more and more of the software development process and becoming more and more accurate and autonomous in their work. So think of an AI code assistant as a deeply experienced, highly trained software developer sitting alongside you to help you be more successful with your everyday tasks.
Yeah,
and just, go ahead.
Oh, good. If you've been using like ChatGPT or something and copy pasting your code into the ChatGPT prompt and having these long 100-word conversations with it to be able to get the result you want, I just want to tell you that using Tabnine is nothing like that. It's a couple of button clicks. We take care of all the prompt engineering for you, and you're going to find that it just is a much better way to work, and it's going to give you results that you can actually use.
So just moving, we're going to touch on, we talked previously about favorite IDEs, right? And wanting to support you where you're comfortable, but at a high level, this is what we cover, right? So from VS Code to Visual Studio, Eclipse, all the way through the entire JetBrains family. And when it comes to languages and libraries and frameworks, we support the most popular languages, libraries, frameworks as well, right? And roughly over 600 of them are supported currently, but with an ever-growing list, right? Just continuing to bolster our stance on wanting to meet you where you're comfortable. We're not going to ask you to change your ways. But unlike other coding assistants or code assistants, Tabnine is the code assistant that you control. And that's how we're different, right? And there's 3 sort of layers to that. One, it's private, right? You choose where and how to deploy Tabnine to maximize control over your intellectual property. And you can rest easy knowing that Tabnine never stores or shares your company's code. 2, it's personalized, right? Tabnine delivers this optimal or optimized experience for each development team. It's context aware, and it can be tuned to recommend based on your standards. You can also create a bespoke model trained on your specific code bases. And then the third part is it's protected. Tabnine's built with enterprise-grade security and compliance at its core. right? So we both offer both indemnification and models trained on exclusively open source code with permissive licenses, to avoid any risk of IP liabilities. And just to touch on indemnification, by nature, right, using Tabnine's models doesn't expose you to the risk of intellectual property infringement, but we support Tabnine enterprise customers with the added protection of indemnification.
So whatever your security posture is, whatever your company's risk tolerance is for IP liability is in regards to injecting unlicensed code into your code bases, as well as wherever your CISO and security team requires and mandates for the deployment of AI tools, Tabnine's super flexible. So you can deploy it the way you like, use the models you like, and stay in compliance with everything that you need. So there's really no roadblocks to adopting Tabnine. And that's one of the reasons that companies from highly regulated and secure industries like aerospace and defense, the federal government, as well as insurance and financial services and banking and healthcare, along with the growing list of other industries and large enterprises, choose Tabnine. So you're probably wondering, well, the most common question I often get is like, hey, what's the difference between Tabnine and GitHub Copilot, right? So give me a couple of minutes here and I'll walk you through all of that. So first off, you can choose where and how you deploy Tabnine. You can deploy Tabnine fully air-gapped on-prem if you like. You can also deploy it through VPC. And there's an option as well to deploy Tabnine Enterprise as well through SaaS. Now, if you're going with the SaaS deployment, there's a couple things that you should know. And that is that we guarantee total code privacy and zero data retention, even for our Tabnine Enterprise SaaS customers. And what that means is, first of all, we use ephemeral processing. So any request you send over to the Tabnine server is only stored for the amount of time that it takes us to give you back a coding recommendation based on that request, and then it's immediately deleted. Second, we also never retain any of your data. We don't share it with third parties, and your data is never used to train our own models. So all the personalization and enhancements that we do for you remain specific and unique to your own instance of Tabnine and are never exposed to anyone else. So that gives you total protection from the risk of IP leakage to an LLM model, which would obviously not be great since your software is your competitive advantage here. And that's why we want to make sure that with Tabnine, your code always remains your own. Now, if your company has really strong concerns around IP liability being introduced into your code base through the injection of unlicensed code via an AI coding assistant, we recommend using our proprietary model. And that's Tabnine Protected. There's two versions of Tabnine Protected. One is a code completions model, and the other is a chat model that powers all of our AI agents. And what's unique about the Tabnine Protected model is that we trained it exclusively on open source and permissively licensed code. Furthermore, you can review all of the data and licenses that we use to train the Tabnine Protected model in our Trust Center. We'll send you a link to that after this presentation. So just feel free to hop in there and peruse and take a look yourself. And finally, as Chris noted, if IP liability is a concern, we recommend using Tabnine Protected. And by nature, that protects you from that risk entirely. But just as a peace of mind, we offer added protection through indemnification. So that addresses your concerns, I hope, about any blockers with that you're running into with deploying an AI coding assistant in your company. And if you're thinking about deploying Tabnine on-prem, we know sourcing GPUs can be pretty challenging, and we have relationships with those suppliers and kind of help you along the way with that process. And no matter what cloud provider you're using, you can deploy Tabnine through that cloud. We're partnered with all the top cloud providers, GCP, Amazon, Bedrock, etc. So super flexible there. So before I go on much further, just wanted to kind of set the foundation for how you guys think about AI coding assistants. So what really drives the performance of an AI code assistant? At Tabnine, our view is it's a three-legged stool that really unlocks high performance for an AI code assistant. The first is the underlying LLM. The second is the context that's layered on through integration with your dev tool stack and sources of code and non-code information. And the third is the usage of AI agents to eliminate the need for sophisticated prompt engineering on your engineer's part so that using the AI is seamless and is a couple of button clicks and a few words, and you get the response that you need. And what's interesting to note here is I don't know if you've all been paying attention to what's been going on with the LLM providers, but ChatGPT recently delayed the launch of Orion. And the reason for that was that the performance lift that they saw in the model was marginal compared to GPT 4.0. And there's some interesting research that come out from third parties recently that's forecasting that the LLM providers will have exhausted all publicly available training data for code generation and other use cases by February 2025. So you're going to run into a pretty hard wall here on increasing the performance of AI for software development through enhancements to the LLM models themselves. And what we think is going to start to happen is that the LLMs themselves are kind of almost going to become a commodity in some senses. And you're going to see a surge in small language models instead. And these models will be perhaps language specific. Perhaps they'll be models that your company will develop themselves. And thus, when you pick an AI coding assistant, it's important to pick one that gives you that model flexibility so that you can continue to take advantage of any innovations that come out in LLMs, as well as SLMs, as well as homegrown products that you guys may create through your own machine learning teams. And then the enhancements that Tabnine does in regards to personalization, as well as AI agents, are completely model agnostic. So that's really our secret sauce. And the interesting thing to note here is we started deploying and offering switchable models in Tabnine in about January or February of this year. When we did that and we upgraded from GPT 3.5 to 4.0, for example, we saw about a 5 to 7% lift in code acceptance rates from the improved performance of the underlying model alone, which is a pretty significant improvement, right? But when we rolled out local context awareness or IDE context awareness, we saw a 40% lift in code acceptance rates from just the first level of the 4 levels of personalization that we execute for you alone. And if you're not familiar with what code acceptance is, it's a internal metric we've developed, and it's something that you can review in the Tabnine admin dashboard. And what that really tells you is a developer queried Tabnine. Tabnine gave them a response back. Did they implement and apply the response? Was it usable? Was it good? So the biggest increases in the ability of an AI coding assistant to generate code that actually meets your requirements and specifications are going to come from personalizing and adding on AI agents to these underlying LLM or SLM models. And as you layer on more and more context through code-based connection, coaching, and model customization, you'll see that 40% increase in code acceptance number just continue to climb. So before I hop into personalization, with Tabnine, you get complete model flexibility. So you can switch the underlying LLM with a single button click. It's in a dropdown right in your IDE. We support all of the most popular LLM models. In our internal benchmarking, we found that Claude 3.5 is the highest performing model currently for software development use cases when combined with our AI agents and context and personalization. And what's kind of interesting that you should know is if you're deploying Tabnine on premise and you have your own endpoint for any models, you can connect that into Tabnine. So that gives you the flexibility to use your own homegrown models or leverage existing models that your company is already using with Tabnine. And of course, if you're using Tabnine SaaS, we include all the models as part of your subscription. You can also have them added on, included with VPC as well, but that kind of depends on your company's privacy and security posture around using third-party models outside of your own cloud environment. So three ways to increase performance, right? LLM, AI agents, and personalization. So we should know about Tabnine. And if you used us back in 2018, you probably just thought we were a code completions tool, which we were back then. But there have been a massive amount of performance improvements that we've made, as well as new features we've rolled out since then that you might not be aware of. And one category of those is we've developed a set of AI agents for the entire SDLC. So you can use our agents to go all the way from planning through code review. And you can do this without leaving your IDE. So one of our goals here is to have Tabnine fully integrate with all the tools in your existing dev tool stack, pull context from them, and then enable your engineers to take action on those insights with AI agents directly in the IDE. So imagine being able to execute a full SDLC without having to leave your IDE ever again. That's pretty cool. I should note, though, that the exception to the not having to leave your IDE rule is our code review agent, which actually activates inside the pull request itself. But Chris will show you that in some time here. But onwards to personalization. So there's 4 levels of personalization that we offer at Tabnine. And this level leverages RAG and RAG indexing. The first level is context, which is right inside your IDE. Tabnine uses about 14 different data points here to source that context. To turn it on, it's a simple button click called workspace indexing. You just toggle that on, and Tabnine reads through your open project, looks at any imported packages, files, and libraries. It pulls context from your chat history, from your cursor, from code completions and typing that you're doing as well. And that's really what's produced that first 40% lift in code acceptance rates. The second level of personalization you can activate is through the Tabnine admin panel. You can connect Tabnine into your code repositories. We support GitLab, GitHub, and Atlassian Bitbucket today. Setting up that integration is as simple as a couple of button clicks and typing in an SSH key, and you're ready to go. And the third level of personalization we offer is coaching. And under that pillar is the code review agent. And the way that works is there's 2 ways to train the agent on your unique engineering team standards and policies. Every engineering team has their own ideas about what constitutes good code. So if you have those documented in a plain English rule set, you can give that to us, and we perform enhancements on it to add good examples and bad examples of code, as well as categorizing the rule sets by library and language. Of course, Tabnine on its code review agent also comes pre-built with a couple hundred code review rules to ensure privacy and code performance and compliance. If you don't have your rule set clearly documented out, that's not a problem either. Just point us at a repo that you think has good code in it, and we'll use Tabnine to extract those insights and create a rule set with you, review it with you, and we'll deploy it into the code review agent. And important to note that with all of our AI agents, they're human in the loop. So the recommendation it generates is reviewed by a human and then applied and can be asked to be modified by your engineer as well. So it's really important to us that we keep the engineer in the flow and aware of everything the AI is doing. And this really ensures that you're getting the right code out of your AI coding assistant and really protects you from pushing in a bunch of junk code quickly. The other important thing is as you're using all of our AI agents pre-code review, you're going to see that you're going to ship code into code review much, much faster. And the code review agent's really going to prevent code review from becoming a bottleneck for your company here. Finally, the 4th level of personalization we do is customization and fine-tuning. We use that language a little bit differently here at Tabnine. You can broadly kind of say that we're customizing and fine-tuning Tabnine across all 3 of the previous personalization layers as well. That's how a lot of other people in the space speak about it. But when we're talking about fine-tuning and model customization, what we're talking about is the Tabnine protected code completions model. It's our proprietary model. And what we can do for you with that is if you have about 3 million lines of code, we can train a customized code completions model for you based on your company's own code. That model remains completely private to you. And that is the only personalization component that is exclusively offered to our on-premise customers. So I'll stop talking your ear off here about Tabnine. I'm sure what you all really came here to see was the product in action. So I'm going to hand it off to Chris here, and we are going to take you through a full application build of a Java app. We picked a Java app because that's what we're comfortable writing code in. But again, Tabnine supports 600 languages, libraries, and frameworks. So whatever language you're working in, you can use Tabnine to help execute that. So we'll start all the way from a Jira issue, go through planning, code generation, validation, documentation, testing, fixing and finding bugs and errors, and finally end with a demo of our code review agent and the pull request. So you'll see how Tabnine can really help you at every step along the way.
Okay.
Thanks, Dotun. We think it's pretty nice as well.
All right. Let's go to the demo here. Sweet. Can we all see this? I think so. Alrighty. So we're going to start off with covering interacting with Tabnine first. We've heard a lot about what it does over the first 20, 25 minutes, but let's put a name to a face, if you will. We'll go over the Tabnine UI that folks are going to be interacting with and each of those agents they'll find along the way. So start up opening your IDE. In this case, I'm using VS Code. That's my IDE of choice. But again, we support the JetBrains family, Visual Studio, Eclipse, so on and so forth. So you'll see the Tabnine logo here on the left-hand side. Upon clicking that, it's going to open up the Tabnine chat. So starting at the bottom, you'll see a sort of a query bar here, and this is where you can use everyday natural language, conversational language to type in prompts, queries, to generate suggestions or get answers. You can also use these buttons here. Now, we talked about agents prior, right? And these buttons here launch different agents like, these buttons launch different agents, and these agents are designed to do all of the heavy lifting for end users to reduce prompt engineering, right? So you take something like explain code. That is a great agent for onboarding into new projects, which we'll show here in a second. Gives you a comprehensive overview of everything in the code base and key dependencies and so on and so forth. Next up, oh, you know what? Excuse me. Before we move over to the beaker icon, let's touch on the switchable models here. So within the top left of the Tabnine chat, this is where you'll be able to freely choose between the LLMs that are available, at least within your organization. So you can choose the right model for each task, but by selecting from up top here via the ones that your administrator has made available. Next to the chat icon, you're going to see this test beaker. And this is where you're going to be able to generate comprehensive test plans for your code, which we'll get into later on in this demo. But then the last section here is going to be a cog, like that little gear cog, and this is going to be our settings, right? So you'll be able to toggle chat inline completion. So as you type, it'll auto-complete when you're doing your natural language queries in the bottom. You'll be also able to, let's say you're a more seasoned developer and you don't care as much for an explanation, you can have your responses be nice and concise. But let's say you're also a junior developer, or you are a junior developer, and you're trying to learn as well, or maybe you're using a new language. This is where you can turn on this comprehensive, and you can make it just add a little bit more info to the Tabnine responses and suggestions, right? Gives you a little bit more of the what and the why to what you're doing. Next, you'll see an area where you can define custom commands. So I have two here, one for generating Java docs if I am starting from scratch, and one that I'm toying around with, and I'll maybe demo later in this demo on how to fix in documents. So you can sort of combine two commands together, but it's really honing in on that personalization piece. So that's Tabnine chat. The next area where you're going to see Tabnine is within code completions, right? So as I'm typing, anything that comes in gray, not the dropdown, but the gray that you see here, that's the Tabnine at work, right? And what it's doing is, as I'm typing, Tabnine is going to, it'll generate contextually relevant code recommendations, right? It'll automatically recognize my intent. So if I'm writing a test, it will autocomplete the test. If I'm writing, in this case, more useful info rules for my program, it'll recognize that and it'll suggest more rules to add on here.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about that is, so if you saw what Chris just did there, Tabnine's constantly trying to predict what your intent is. So it's looking at all of his IDE context right now, and it's seeing that in this particular code block, he's writing system out and print lan commands here. And that's why it's suggesting something that fits the relevant code block here. In this example, it's just doing a single line completion, but Tabnine also does full function completions as well. And if you remember from earlier when I talked about model fine tuning and creating a custom code completions model trained on your own code base, that would be a Tabnine code completions model that you'd interact with in the same manner Chris is showing you here.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, just a single line, but does have the ability to create, full blocks of code, which really speeds up how fast things move. But anywho, the next piece I want to talk about is the Tabnine code lens. So at the top of each block of code, you're going to see a handful of buttons, right? And this is just another way to initialize some of these agents here on the left, right? So you can edit this block of code, test, explain, document, ask. If there was an error, you'd also be able to fix. So the last piece, and then we'll get on with the demo, is just the quick commands, right? So sort of moving from out of the flow, more in flow, but still requiring you to use your mouse, to then sort of the ultimate flow state using, or developer flow state use of Tabnine, which would be the quick commands, right? So on a Mac, that's a command I, and that opens up this drop down, right? So you have the ability to change your model. You can also click quick commands, and this is where you'll find the ability to fix code, document code, explain code, or use the code explorer. And you can use those with your arrow keys, right? So your hands theoretically never have to leave the keys, which I think is pretty cool. It's a nice way to just stay in your flow. So we'll go through this usual cycle for a software developer, going through each phase of the SDLC, and we're going to start with plan. So for this first stage, as a developer, it's incredibly important to gain an understanding of what the application does, how it works, what's included, the whole kit and caboodle, right? So we're going to be using the Tabnine Explore agent. And this Explore agent is a built-in quick action that Tabnine chat users can invoke when starting a conversation. So if you already have something written in here, you won't see this. This will disappear, right? So you have to start a new conversation, or if you're starting from a blank slate, like we are right now, that's where this will live, right? So for the Code Explorer, we'll click Explore Codebase. And what it's doing right now is returning a high-level summary of the project's key elements, including runnable scripts, key dependencies, and overall structure. In addition to this summary, it'll also generate a list of possible follow-up questions, right, about this summary, allowing the developer to dive further into relevant information for their current task, right? So using Tabnine chat, users can onboard to a new project much faster, while reducing the load on their experienced colleagues who will spend less time helping the new teammates onboard. I mean, you can think about if you've downloaded something, a big open source project, and it's, we're talking hundreds of lines of code. It could take you a really long time to figure that out. Or you can click one button and it'll generate you, a full summary of the entire code base, which is pretty cool. And also, again, prompt you with further questioning to gain even more of an understanding. So taking something that has historically taken hours into something that takes less than a minute, as fast as you can read, right? So we know here that this is a password generator project. This is a CLI program. We know what's in each file, and we know how it ties together. So let's continue on to this next phase of the SDLC, which is going to be to create. So earlier in the session, I may briefly talked about, excuse me, our Jira agents, and there's two, right? We have our implementation and our validation agents. So to connect those, it is 2 clicks, takes about 30 seconds. Yeah, click connect here. I'm already connected, but you would connect here. It would take you to a Jira sort of 2FA screen, and it's another click there. So about 30 seconds, and you're integrated. And what happens is now if I go over to my Jira board here, so this is our sort of demo board here, I can see what tickets are in my queue today. So I have 5 here. And if I go back into tab 9 now, I'll pick one of these by either typing in the Jira command, right, at Jira. Let's see here.
You're in the Code Explorer agent still, so I think you got to just open up a
Yes.
new conversation, and that'll take care of it.
Interesting.
Okay. Might have just run into a bug here with our Jira connection. So why don't you disconnect to Jira and reconnect?
Let's try
it
that
and
again.
try it again.
This is the perks of doing it live, right? This is how you know it's real and not scripted.
One of the fun things you run into when you have everyone sharing the same enterprise demo environment. You never know what config people have changed.
Let's see here. All righty.
And try maybe signing in and out of your Jira and then refreshing the IDE window as well. It looks like it's just kind of running into some. This is kind of funny. It's the first time this has ever happened. I think we've done like 8 of these at this point. Perfectly.
Yeah, it's bound to happen one of these times. That is the that's okay. Are we connected? Yes, we are. Cool. We like this. We don't like that. All right. Well, for the sake of the demo and today, I think we might skip over the Jira agent part, but we can still cover creating. So let's shift gears. Let's do an audible here. So I am going to, let's say, highlight this block of code, and we're going to say create a new or 2 new rules for useful info that includes suggestions for improving password security and user experience. Sweet. Let's apply those. Cool.
So what's kind of cool about what Tab9 does here is you can see it's added 2 new rules, 14 and 15. It also tells you what it did. So it's not a black box here, and you can read that review and make sure that what the AI is generating is actually something that you'd want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it will show you the difference as well. And I also, a new functionality that I think is worth noting on, apply. Apply is really cool and seems small, but is, to me, very impactful. Other AI code assistants, when you get a suggestion, right, you'll have to track down where it's supposed to go, sort of dissect the code, and ultimately insert it in the right place. Apply takes all of the thought out of that. Where the suggestion is, as it should, where it's giving you the suggestion for that block of code, hitting apply automatically, regardless of where your cursor's location, will apply that change to that block of code, right? So if you are doing, a laundry list of changes, right, or it's suggesting multiple changes, you don't have to spend this time going to the block, navigating to it, reading what's different, and copying and pasting or inserting it. You can just go through the chat and read what it's done, make sure it agrees with you, click apply. Read what it's done, make sure it agrees with you, click apply, and so on and so forth. So it's really a cool, manageable way and really easy way of getting a lot of changes through the door. So we've created something, right? We've added new code, but I noticed somewhere there's multiple places in here that there are some errors in my code, right? So we are going to move on to the next stage of the SDLC, which is fixing, right? So we can ask Tabnine, we'll just start here and we'll say, where are the errors in my code within, looks like they're in the Java generator, and we can reference that, right? The generator.java file.
So this app mentioned is pretty interesting. So what you could do with that is prioritize the RAG index and point it at specific parts of your local workspace. And if your hashtag, you can point it at specific parts of your global repository as well. And that just prioritizes the information that Tabnine is going to grab from there to increase the relevance of the response.
So what we're doing is, it looks like a simple public. Let's see here. This is just a misspelling. And I think this tells me that it should be system out. Yeah. So let's go through here. Perfect. All right.
So this is kind of cool. So Tabnine recognized the intent in Chris's chat prompt, saw that he was looking to fix errors, and then invoked the fix code agent as well, and not only found the errors, but then suggested contextually relevant fixes to them immediately. So it's kind of the power of AI agents at work. You don't have to be, if you were trying to do this with a LLM outside the IDE that didn't have context, you'd have to probably copy paste the entire code block into there, tell it to find the errors, then copy each error and paste it, and then tell it to, can you fix this particular error, but don't change anything else about the code. That would be like a multiple chat conversations before you actually got to something you could use. So see the same thing happen with all of them.
Quite long, right? It becomes a really tedious process. So we've fixed the errors in this code. It looks like everything is, well, nothing's red, so that's at least good. We'll move on to testing, right? And the testing agent, we'll go back over here. There's two ways that you can sort of test in Tabnine. Well, I guess sort of three, right? You can use the test button here to test a specific block of code. You can, again, initialize from the quick commands to test a block of code within the natural language query here. You can also go into the agent, the chat, Tabnine AI chat, and you can click the generate test for code or go to the test agent. So again, we're very big on where you're comfortable, whatever flow you prefer, right? As in the flow state as you can get, or if you want to take a break and move out here to the window, that's also acceptable. So today we're going to be using the test agent though within the AI chat. So let's go generate a test plan. So first thing it'll do is it'll ask you to select code that you want to test. Let's see here. We'll go for the main class. We'll highlight this. Perfect. I do not have a test file. In this case, for the generator.test, I already do. And if you did, you would say, I do have one, and you would browse here and find your test file from above. But in this case, we do not have one.
Yeah, and if you did have a test file and you were using it, what Tabnine would do would be, it would read the test file, see what's in there, and then read the code that you've pointed it at. And as it's generating this test plan, I'd look to see what's missing, what should be added on, what needs to be changed, and factor that into the recommendation it's going to make.
Exactly. We totally understand that sometimes in this process, testing can be personal, right? You might like to use AI for the 90% of it, right? But the actual testing phase, that's something you want to have a handle on. Totally okay. You can take your own tests, as Amaya said, and upload them, or have them here within Tabnine. But then ask, do I have full coverage? And if I don't, what's missing? And then you can, it'll suggest tests to add. So in this case, the testing agent, it's generated this, sort of template for me. But then it also has all of these suggested tests that I can add. And what it'll do is you can we'll insert this here. Now there's probably something at the top missing that I need to import. But let's say that you don't like, make some modifications. Nothing here is set in stone. These are all just suggestions, right? So you can describe here how you want to modify the test, right? If there's just something you want to change about it, or if it's, almost what you want, or maybe it's not even close, but you want to use it as a starting point, you can do that here, and then you can tweak the test to your liking and then insert it within the plan.
Yeah, and where this becomes really powerful is really in an enterprise environment. When you're making massive updates to your applications, that is going to necessitate creating a complete overhaul of your testing plan as well. And using the test speaker and the test agent to do this is really going to streamline that entire process.
So we can even say, just out of curiosity, what am I missing in the admin? Well, there's a lot of stuff I did not import, but that's okay. That's why we have the AI chat to be able to ask these kinds of questions, right? So based on, your application, it'll, in this case, there are specific things that I need to, there's sort of one-offs that I need to import here in the test file, just due to the nature of the program. But it's a full end-to-end coverage, right? If there's anything you have an issue with, or there's an error, or something doesn't make sense like this, this is a perfectly good example of it explaining exactly what's wrong in here, the changes that you need to make, and why you're doing each. So we've created new code. We've created tests that properly simulate real world sort of scenarios. The next step would be to provide, say, documentation, right? So let's go here, and we can do this using the code lens. So we're going to generate, well, you can generate for the entire file, or you can generate for specific blocks of code. So in this case, we'll do this block of code here, and we'll ask Tabnine to generate documentation for it, which I assume it's going to stick above, which is not my personal preference. Yeah, there we go. So what you can do, let's say you don't like this suggestion, and this isn't just with documentation, anything within the code lens, or even within the quick commands sort of palette at the top, you can refine your request. So let's say you're like me and you don't want to look at it at the top. You want the documentation to be line by line. So I can say, generate more detailed documentation that sits to the right of each line within the block. Hard at work. Sweet. Cool. Now you can see that, let me just accept this. There still is some at the top, but I also now have it line by line on the right-hand side, which is exactly what I asked for and what I want. Additionally, if you are writing documentation and your team, let's say, for example, you are following the Java docs format, Tabnine will automatically recognize that, and when you do generate documentation, it will generate that those docs in that format, which is pretty cool. So The last piece, sort of the second to last piece of the SDLC, is going to be to maintain, right? And you'll want to continue to improve your applications. And tab 9 can be a really good source of ideas for you to do just that. So what we'll do here is we'll start a new conversation. We'll ask tab 9 to give me 10 ideas for improving the security. Let's make it fun. Functionality and user experience of the password generator checker program. So what you'll see here is tab 9 is going to give me, in this case, 10 examples of or suggested improvements, as well as the code to go along with it. And another piece you can sort of follow up with, and apologies for not being able to demo the Jira connection, but what you can do is you can ask tab 9 to generate acceptance criteria or Jira tickets, right? So it won't actually generate the Jira ticket within Jira for you, but what it will do is generate it in the exact sort of format, right? With a description, acceptance criteria, and so on and so forth. So when you do that handshake of implementing tickets and then validating those tickets, it is crystal clear. And it's just sort of a more streamlined way to go through that entire process, right? But now it's sort of a rinse and repeat, right? You implement these new features, you would document them, test them, and then push, right? Which actually then leads us to our last piece of this sort of demo, right? We talked about previously this code review agent, and that's sort of one of the newest things we've launched here at tab 9. So we'll move over there, and we'll start first with the sort of the rules interface, right? So this is where you can see all of the predefined rules by tab 9, as well as where all of the rules that align with your unique standards will be stored, right? Tab 9 Enterprise comes standard, as Amaya said, with a predefined set of rules that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on software development best practices from leading voices in and around our space. But within this rules interface, you can visualize, fine-tune the rule set, allowing you to view good and bad examples of each rule, determine what's public or on by default, enabled. You can also filter by severity, language, email ID, and so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to adding new rules, all you need to do as a user or customer is send us a rule description in plain language. So something, it doesn't even have to be as, it can be as simple as this, right? And tab 9 will ingest and create the rest, right? Tab 9 will enrich each rule, adding a much more elaborate description, good and bad coding examples, etc. And administrators, when uploading a new rule themselves, it's incredibly simple, right? You determine the language and what rule type it is, right? Is it for a specific user, or is it an organization-wide rule? And then upload the file, and that's that. It's quite simple, right? Additionally, you can connect your repo, as Amaya said, and tab 9 will evaluate, analyze, and create a rule set based on your specific code base. All of which, though, can be configured post-generation, which I think is important to touch on. So moving over to the developer side of the house, what's this look like from their point of view, right? So you're an engineering manager, you're reviewing PRs. This is what you would see, right? What happens is when a developer makes a PR or an MR, Tabnine reviews the code in that PR, MR against your rules, and it'll flag any deviations and offer suggestions to fix that code, right? So you'll see as we go through here, it'll give you the code that is in review, the rule, and sort of what's why it's being triggered, and then it'll give you a suggested revised version. And this is awesome because there's some things that, you know, as we all know, you might have a lot of rules, and there might be things that, you know, with junior developers that folks just often forget. This is a huge one that, you know, I know from my time in the cybersecurity industry that folks often do forget to not hard code sensitive information, such as API keys and passwords. It seems trivial, but truly is a huge worry and can be you know, devastating, right? So being able to catch something like this is really, really, really powerful. And then additionally, we'll have a PR report, right? So it'll show you at a high level what was detected and found, right? So how many critical issues, how many errors, how many warnings, and possible suggestions. But yeah, so then I guess the real last piece of all of this would be our admin panel. So just sort of quickly going over, starting at the top, you'll see analytics getting more granular as you move through, being able to, you know, see your account utilization and how active your developers are, but then diving more into specific metrics, right? How many interactions they've had, what languages are being most used, or models, excuse me, are being most used within your organization. Additionally, this is where you're able to manage teams, manage users, and this is the self-hosted admin panel. But in the settings, this is where you are, for example, I move to models. This is where you can turn on, as an administrator, turn on and off your available LLMs to your organization, right? So it's as simple as you know, clicking one of these sliders and well, not this one, but it's as simple as turning on a slider and immediately it gets initialized on your developer's windows. No need to like reload, you know, exit out of your IDE and initialize it again, which is quite nice. The last piece here, this is where you're also able to connect external code repositories, right? So this is takes about 2 minutes. I usually do it through an SSH key, but this is where it'll live. I think I have one, maybe, let me see here. Well, yeah, looks like the we did a refresh here, so my one has been removed, but this is where it'll live, and this is also where you can enable Jira connection. As well as Tabnine context, right? So we talked about that workspace context and that massive improvement in efficiency, or the efficiency gain that you got from, or that we saw from turning that on. This is where you enable it. And I guess just to tie off on that, this is where within the IDE that you are able to enable it there, right? So from a new conversation, you can toggle it on or off. But again, toggling it on will allow your developers to have Tabnine. It'll give your developers the ability to have Tabnine consider their projects, current files, packages, etc., as context for their AI chat. So I think, geez, that probably takes up all of that's it for the demo. Happy to dive into anything particular if there's anything we want to talk about, or if there are any questions.
Yeah, so I had a question from Doten. Using IntelliJ, what are the major similarities and advantages that Tabnine has over AI Assistant? So the first one's going to be model flexibility. We offer more third-party models. JetBrains does not offer Claude 3.5 currently. Also on their model documentation, they just say they offer the GPT family, so it's unclear what version of GPT they're currently using there. And then they're using Gemini as well, which I have not deeply looked into the performance data on that, but I know we currently don't offer it because we haven't gotten any requests for using Google Gemini. And I'm unclear on the languages JetBrains supports as well. They don't have a clear documentation on that. The Jira integration clearly bugged out today and didn't work, but that usually does work really well. I know they don't offer that. They also do not do anything to support code review. I think finally, if you're looking at Tabnine Enterprise, we're really focused with Tabnine on large enterprise organizations and large engineering teams and serving their needs. So I think the JetBrains AI assistant may be more appropriate for individual developers. And then I don't think that they have all of the AI agents that we do. So I know you can generate some tests and do some documentation with JetBrains, as well as do some code generation and code completions. I don't think they can generate a comprehensive testing plan like Tabnine can. I know they don't offer model fine-tuning and customization. And I don't think you can deploy JetBrains AI code assistant air-gapped or on-premise. So that's where you'll run into some roadblocks there. A couple of the other points that are different. Tabnine has been top ranked by Gartner in the AI code assistance critical capabilities report. We're ranked number 1 for 3 out of 5 use cases and number 2 for 2 out of 5 use cases. I don't believe the JetBrains AI code assistant even warranted a evaluation by Gartner. So as far as usage for large enterprises, I don't think it's being considered at all. And then the JetBrains AI assistant is really only limited to their own family of IDEs. And one thing I didn't mention that I definitely should have was you cannot get code-based connection and integration with the JetBrains AI code assistant today. With Tabnine, you can connect it into your Atlassian Bitbucket, GitHub, or GitLab repos. And as you'll see, as we progress over the next year or so, Tabnine is going to continue to integrate with more and more tools in your DevTool stack. So I frankly don't think they're going to be able to keep up with us on that front either. Still, I think if you're an individual developer, certainly an AI code assistant that you can use for your hobby projects. I do know that the pricing on their individual plan is an additional charge in addition to the IDE subscription you have to pay. So you can get better functionality with our Tabnine Dev plan. That's $9 a month. That installs on any IDE, so you don't need to go and pay for an additional IDE subscription on top of it. And we're currently running a 50% off Cyber Week sale on that plan as well. So I believe you can get that for $45 or $50 for an entire year subscription to Tabnine Dev today.
See here. I'm trying to think if there's any other. We've done an hour and 5. If there's any other questions here, we'll sit around for a little longer.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for that, there's a couple ways for you to get started with Tabnine. If you're really just looking to explore it yourself as an individual dev, we offer a 30-day free trial on our Tabnine Dev plan. Thank you, Adrian, chiming in here with that. The Tabnine Dev annual subscription costs $49.50 for the remainder of this week. So if you want to just try it out there, you're not going to get the full feature set that Chris and I went through on the Dev plan. And then if you're interested in Tabnine Enterprise, it's $39 per user per month. And as you can see from this chat window here, there's Cam, one of our SDRs, and come to our website and just talk to him, and he'll get the ball rolling for your evaluation of Tabnine Enterprise and guide you through the steps there. Question from Armando: what specific steps can a team take to fully integrate Tabnine into their CI/CD pipeline, ensuring data privacy and seamless collaboration among developers. So there isn't currently any direct integration to CI/CD tools for Tabnine. But as you're generating all your code and executing things inside the IDE and you're submitting your pull requests, what we really take care of is ensuring that that code is high quality, meets your organization's standards and requirements, and is performant. So I think if you give us some more time here to continue working on the product, you're going to see that it's going to integrate into a lot more tools. CI/CD pipeline is definitely a request we get quite frequently, so we're aware of it, and it's something we're working towards. But as far as ensuring data privacy and seamless collaboration among developers, when you're on the Tabnine Enterprise plan, let's say you're deployed air-gapped on-premise, Tabnine is a fully self-hosted AI system for you there, so nothing ever leaves your own architecture. So by nature, that would be totally private and seamless. Similarly, on a VPC, regardless of whatever cloud provider you're using, Tabnine would entirely interact with all of your tooling on your virtual private cloud. So you are good to go from a data privacy perspective always with Tabnine. Seamless collaboration among developers. Forgot to touch on that. So that is really happening through a couple of different mechanisms, but not quite directly, if you will. As you saw in the demo, we generated code, documentation, testing, and that ensures that your code is going to be maintainable and easily maintainable going forward. So if your developer team's churning in and out, or you're onboarding or hiring new developers, having Tabnine in your entire development process is by nature of what the tool does going to improve the collaboration among your development team through a couple of different ways. One, of course, by making the code more understandable and maintainable. The other, as Chris is pulling up the code review, is ensuring that all your developers are following your organization's standards in code review, and that your development leads that are on the hook to complete these code reviews are getting the support that they need and able to do it in a consistent format with Tabnine. So
yeah, I think
question. Go ahead.
So just to answer, or not to answer, but to add on to that, I think the idea of, if you didn't have this, right, you might go message someone on Slack or Teams or send an email, right? Sometimes emails, Slack messages, we all know, get lost, right? So I think this is also another way to keep that conversation and communication, to not only foster it here, because we're actually, there's things to discuss, to talk about, right? There's these changes, but it's also keeping it all in one place, which I think is really, really important. So that seamless collaboration among developers, I think this really hits on. And one other piece I'll say for next demo was showing Amaya previously this sort of the idea of creating custom commands, and I think that's a really powerful thing, and really continues to it's really adding to the personalization bucket, right? There's things that you see yourself doing often, or you do often, or you want to I'm toying around right now with being able to not only fix things, but also generate documentation for them at the same time. These custom commands are really cool ways to fine tune and personalize your experience specific to you as a developer. It's also quite powerful too. So I'm learning more about it and using it more, but excited to show the folks here what we end up coming up with. Sweet. We'll let's see here. We'll give it maybe 30 more seconds for some more questions, and then we can wrap things up. Sneak peeks at upcoming updates. It's a good question. I don't know. It's a dicey one. Let's see
No,
here.
no sneak peeks for you guys right now, but stay tuned. We do these every week, so you'll be the first to know. And anytime we launch a new feature, we do a Tab9 live. So stay tuned.
This is a
Didn't want
good
to
place
give
to
away too much.
oh yeah, it's a good place to tune in and learn. As Amaya said, we do find out, as things come out, this is the grounds where we'll be showing them as well. And Adrian, yes, we do plan on doing like I said, more custom command stuff. I'm having a lot of fun with it currently. So learning something new every day.
Alrighty, well, thanks for joining us for Tabnine Office Hours. If you want to register for upcoming sessions, you can do that on the Tab9 website or follow us on our social channels, and we'll notify you there. So, alrighty, we'll close out the stream. Oh, if you're at AWS reInvent, come swing by the Tab9 booth at 1997. We're giving away a pair of Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses every day, and you can spin our prize wheel to get a chance for a ticket. You can also watch a demo at the booth to get a second ticket. So that's fun. All right.
Sweet t-shirts, awesome stickers. Might be biased. I'm not sure. Do we have these guys there?
Yeah, we do. We got the I think you got the Metallica version. And
Yep.
I got the Iron Maiden print going on. So far, Metallica seems to be more popular among the AWS attendees. So that's
fun. Yeah, well, come get some swag, as Adrian said. Booth 1997.
alrighty. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye for now, and see you all next week.
Yep. Cheers.